The discovery. The quantum anomaly detector in Lab 7 started screaming at precisely 3:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dr. Maya Patel jolted awake, her half-empty coffee mug nearly toppling off her cluttered desk at the Global Defense Initiative's New Mexico facility. The detector had never activated before, not in the 5 years since she designed it. "Computer, verify reading," she commanded, her fingers flying across the holographic interface. The three-dimensional display materialized above her workstation, showing a massive energy signature unlike anything in their database. "Reading verified," the AI responded. "Unknown energy pattern detected in high Earth orbit. Signature suggests artificial origin. No match with any known human spacecraft or satellites." Maya's heart raced as she initiated emergency protocols. Within minutes, the facility's director, Admiral Thomas Wright, strode into the lab, still adjusting his uniform. His weathered face looked even more severe in the blue glow of the quantum displays. "Talk to me, Dr. Patel. What are we looking at?" Maya gestured at the three-dimensional representation floating between them. "Something big just dropped out of what appears to be a localized space-time distortion, sir. It's approximately 3,000 meters in length and is currently holding position just beyond our moon's orbit." The Admiral's expression darkened. "First contact scenario?" "That would be my assessment, sir. And given the energy readings." She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "Whatever this is, it's far beyond our current technological capabilities." Before Wright could respond, the quantum detector's alarm changed pitch. Maya's fingers danced across the interface, and the holographic display shifted to show multiple new signatures appearing around the first. "Sir," she said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach, "we have more company." "Lots more." The objects emerging from the spatial distortions were clearly ships, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. Their design was organic, almost insectoid, with sweeping curves and chitinous-looking armor plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "How many?" Wright demanded. "I'm counting, 27 large vessels and numerous smaller craft. They're arranging themselves in what appears to be a standard military formation." Maya's fingers flew across the interface, running analyses. "Sir, I'm detecting energy buildups consistent with advanced scanning technology. They're examining Earth's orbital space." Wright reached for the secure communication panel. "This is Admiral Wright. Initialized DEFCON 2. I repeat, DEFCON 2. This is not a drill." As alarms began blaring throughout the facility, Maya noticed something odd in the data streams. The alien vessels were moving erratically, almost as if they were confused by something they were detecting. "Sir," she called out, "look at this. They're scan patterns, they keep breaking up and reforming. It's like they're having trouble mapping our orbital space." Wright leaned in, his eyes narrowing. "Explain." "Our orbital space is, well, sir, it's a mess. We have over 50 years of satellites, space stations, and debris up there. Thousands of objects, all moving in different orbital patterns. Some of it dates back to the 1950s. A new alert flashed across her screen. "Sir. We're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, in multiple formats." The message that filled their screens was unexpected, to say the least. It appeared in perfect English, though the syntax was strange. "Attention primitive species designation, human. This is Fleet Commander NXTKK of the Hexapod Empire. Your world has been selected for resource extraction. Your orbital space is chaotic and undisciplined. Clear it immediately to allow for our harvest fleet's approach. Failure to comply will result in immediate hostile action. You have 6 of your Earth hours to respond." Admiral Wright's laugh was entirely without humor. "They want us to clean up our orbital space. In 6 hours?" Maya's mind was racing, calculations and possibilities flowing through her thoughts. "Sir," she said slowly, "I don't think we should." Wright turned to her, one eyebrow raised. "Explain." "Their ships are massive, yes, but look at how they're moving. They're being incredibly cautious about navigating our orbital space. All that junk up there, it's acting like a natural defense system. Their sensors can't get clean readings through the chaos of all our old satellites and debris." A slow smile spread across Wright's face. "Are you suggesting we use our own mess as a weapon, Doctor?" Maya nodded, her fingers already pulling up orbital maps and debris tracking data. "Better than that, sir. I think we might be able to turn 70 years of space exploration history into humanity's first line of defense. You have 1 hour to give me a workable plan, Dr. Patel. Make it good." As Wright strode out to coordinate with global military commands, Maya began typing furiously. Humanity's tendency to leave their old technology in orbit had just become their greatest advantage. Now she just had to figure out how to use it. The quantum detector continued its lonely wail as dawn approached, warning of the arrival of humanity's greatest challenge, and perhaps their most unconventional opportunity for survival. The unlikely shield. The Global Defense Initiative's command center hummed with tension as officials from every major space agency crowded around the holographic display. Dr. Maya Patel stood before them, her presentation highlighting the complex web of orbital trajectories surrounding Earth. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady despite the pressure, "what you're looking at isn't just space debris, it's our first line of defense against the hexapod fleet." The room erupted in murmurs. Director Elena Volkov of the European Space Agency stepped forward, her expression skeptical. "Dr. Patel, are you suggesting we use our orbital debris field as a weapon?" "Not exactly a weapon, Director," Maya replied, manipulating the hologram to zoom in on specific regions. "Think of it as a shield, one that's been inadvertently building for decades. Our calculations show the hexapod's ships use quantum-based scanning systems to navigate. These systems rely on predictable patterns and clear space to function effectively." She highlighted a particular cluster of defunct satellites. "Earth's orbital space is anything but predictable. We have over 30,000 tracked objects up there, everything from ancient Vanguard satellites to pieces of broken solar panels. Each one moves in its own unique pattern, creating a three-dimensional maze that's practically impossible to map in real time." Admiral Wright stepped forward. "We've already observed their ships struggling with basic maneuvering in our outer orbit. Dr. Patel believes we can use this to our advantage." The hologram shifted, showing the massive hexapod vessels attempting to navigate through the debris field. Their movements were notably cautious, almost hesitant. "Their ships are impressive," Maya continued, "but they're also enormous and surprisingly fragile. Our analysis suggests their hull design prioritizes space travel over defensive capabilities. Even a collision with a relatively small piece of debris could compromise their structural integrity." Dr. Marcus Wong, head of NASA's Orbital Dynamics Division, raised his hand. "But what's stopping them from simply blasting through the debris field?" Maya smiled. "Physics, Dr. Wong. Any attempt to clear a path through the debris would create thousands of smaller fragments, each moving at orbital velocities. It would be like setting off a shotgun blast in a closed room. The ricochets would be devastating, especially to ships their size." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's messy history of space exploration had accidentally created the perfect defensive barrier against an advanced alien invasion. "There's more," Maya added, pulling up new data streams. "We've been analyzing their communication patterns. The hexapods appear to be genuinely confused by our orbital space. Their messages suggest they've never encountered a civilization that maintains such a chaotic orbital environment. Most advanced species apparently clean up their space debris as they develop." Admiral Wright took over. "Which means our supposedly primitive approach to space exploration has given us an unexpected advantage. The question now is, how do we use it?" Maya activated another simulation. I propose Operation Stardust. We can use our existing satellite networks to create controlled chaos in our orbital space. By making subtle adjustments to key pieces of debris, we can essentially weaponize entropy. The simulation showed how strategic manipulation of certain orbital objects could create cascading effects throughout the debris field, making it even more unpredictable and dangerous for the hexapod ships to navigate. We've already begun coordinating with global space agencies to repurpose active satellites, she continued. With proper timing and trajectory calculations, we can turn our orbital space into an active defense system rather than just a passive barrier. Director Volkov leaned forward, studying the projections. The math checks out, but the precision required, it's unprecedented. One miscalculation could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction. Which is why we need everyone's help, Maya replied. Every space agency, every tracking station, every orbital mechanics expert, we need to work together. The hexapods gave us 6 hours to clear our orbital space. Instead, we're going to turn it into humanity's salvation. Admiral Wright surveyed the room. We're facing an adversary with technology far beyond our own. But they've never encountered a species that turned their own mechanical history into a defensive asset. The question is, are we ready to embrace our mess? The room filled with determined nods and murmurs of agreement. Maya turned back to her console, fingers flying across the interface as she began coordinating with global satellite control centers. A junior technician approached her workstation. Dr. Patel, we're receiving another transmission from the hexapod fleet. They're demanding to know why we're activating our orbital devices instead of clearing them. Maya allowed herself a small smile. Tell them we're completing routine maintenance. Let them think we're preparing to comply with their demands. As the command center burst into activity, Maya studied the holographic representation of Earth's orbital space, a chaotic, tangled web of humanity's spacefaring history. What the hexapods saw as primitive carelessness was about to become their greatest challenge. Begin Operation Stardust, Admiral Wright commanded. Let's show our visitors why they should have checked Earth's orbital traffic reports before planning their invasion. Above them, invisible to the naked eye but crucial to their survival, thousands of pieces of space debris continued their eternal dance around the planet. Each fragment, each defunct satellite, each piece of space history was about to become part of humanity's most unconventional defense strategy yet. The first strike. The hexapod empire's deadline expired with Earth's orbital space not only still cluttered but now actively hostile. Dr. Maya Patel watched from the Global Defense Initiative's command center as the alien fleet began its advance, their massive ships moving with calculated precision toward Earth's outer orbital zones. First contact in T-3 minutes, announced Captain Rachel Torres from her station at Mission Control. The young Space Force officer had been coordinating with satellite control centers worldwide, preparing for this moment. All orbital defense grids are active and responding. Maya studied the holographic display showing the intricate dance of debris and satellites they'd orchestrated. Thousands of objects, from defunct communication satellites to fragments of old rocket stages, had been subtly repositioned over the last few hours. Each piece was now part of an elaborate trap. Status report from all stations, Admiral Wright commanded, his voice carrying across the tense silence of the command center. European Space Agency standing by. Roscosmos ready. JAXA confirms all systems go. NASA orbital control active. The first of the hexapod ships entered the outer layer of Earth's orbital space. Its massive form, nearly 3 kilometers long, moved with an almost organic grace. But that grace was about to be tested. They're scanning the approach vector, Maya reported, watching the energy signatures flare on her displays. Just as we predicted, they're trying to map a safe path through the debris field. Admiral Wright nodded grimly. Initiate Phase 1. Maya's fingers flew across her console, implementing the first stage of their defense strategy. Across Earth's orbital space, hundreds of seemingly defunct satellites suddenly activated, their ancient thrusters firing in precisely calculated bursts. The carefully orchestrated movement sent ripples through the debris field, changing orbital patterns that had been stable for decades. The effect on the hexapod fleet was immediate. Their lead ship halted its advance, its scanning beams frantically trying to make sense of the suddenly shifting space around it. "They're sending another transmission," Captain Torres announced. "Text only this time." The message appeared on their screens: "Cease your orbital alterations immediately. Your primitive attempts at resistance will only result in your destruction. This is your final warning." "They're bluffing," Maya said, not looking up from her calculations. "Their ships can't risk firing energy weapons through this debris field. The heat discharge would create plasma disruptions in their own scanning systems." As if to prove her wrong, the lead hexapod ship's weapon ports began to glow with an ominous purple light. "Energy spike detected," shouted one of the technicians. "They're charging weapons." "Right on schedule," Maya muttered, initiating the next phase of their plan. "Admiral, requesting permission to execute Operation Shooting Star." Wright's expression was grim but determined. "Do it." Maya sent the command. High above Earth, an old Soviet-era satellite, long thought dead, suddenly came to life. Its maneuvering thrusters, secretly retrofitted months ago as part of a classified contingency plan, fired in a precise sequence. The satellite's new trajectory sent it directly through the debris field, creating a cascade of collisions that rippled outward toward the hexapod fleet. The alien ship's weapons discharged, but in the chaos of the shifting debris field, their targeting systems failed to compensate. The energy beam meant to clear a path instead superheated dozens of metal fragments, turning them into high-velocity projectiles that scattered in all directions. Direct hits registered on the lead ship's sensor array. Captain Torres reported, excitement breaking through her professional demeanor. "They're losing scanning capability." The massive alien vessel began to drift, its movements becoming erratic as its navigation systems struggled to cope with the loss of critical sensors. Behind it, the rest of the fleet had pulled back, clearly reassessing their approach. "New transmission incoming," announced the communications officer. Audio this time. The alien commander's voice filled the command center, its artificial translation unable to hide the mixture of rage and disbelief. "This is impossible. Your technology is primitive. Your methods are chaos. How are you doing this?" Maya allowed herself a small smile as she continued coordinating the orbital defense grid. "Sometimes chaos is the best defense," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "Dr. Patel," Admiral Wright called out, "they're regrouping. What's our next move?" Maya pulled up a new set of orbital calculations. "They'll try to establish a stable scanning pattern from a distance, attempting to map our debris field's movement. But we've got something special prepared for that." She highlighted a cluster of objects on the display, pieces of an old Chinese space station that had broken up years ago. These fragments contain trace amounts of materials that interfere with their quantum scanning technology. Once they're in position, we can use them to create sensor shadows, blind spots in their detection grid. "How long can we keep this up?" Wright asked quietly. Maya's expression was determined. "As long as we need to. Every piece of space debris up there represents decades of human ingenuity and persistence. We may have been messy in our approach to space exploration, but that mess just became our greatest weapon." Above them, the dance continued. Humanity's orbital graveyard had become a battlefield where the advanced technology of the hexapod empire faced off against 70 years of accumulated human space history. And for now, at least, history was winning. The battle for Earth had begun, and it would be fought not with advanced weapons or massive fleets, but with the scattered remains of humanity's first stumbling steps into space. The very chaos that the hexapods despised had become their greatest challenge, and humanity's best hope for survival. Desperate measures. Multiple breaches detected in the outer defense grid. Captain Torres's voice cut through the chaos of the command center. The hexapods are adapting their strategy. Dr. Maya Patel's hands flew across her holographic interface, adjusting orbital trajectories as she watched the alien fleet implement their new approach. Instead of trying to clear a path through Earth's debris field, they were now using precise, coordinated energy pulses to create stable corridors through the chaos. "They're learning," she muttered, frustration evident in her voice. "Admiral, we need to implement Contingency Protocol Delta." Admiral Wright's face was grim. "That protocol hasn't been tested. The risk of triggering a Kessler cascade will be significantly less than the risk of letting that fleet reach low Earth orbit," Maya interrupted. "Sir, we're running out of options." The massive display showed the hexapod fleet's new formation. They had arranged themselves in a hexagonal pattern, their ship's energy fields working in concert to create a stable tunnel through the debris field. It was beautiful, in a terrifying way, a perfect demonstration of their technological superiority. "Dr. Patel is right," Director Volkov's voice came through the comm system from the European Space Agency. "Our orbital defense grid is losing coherence. We need to take more aggressive action." Wright studied the tactical display for a long moment before nodding. "Initialize Delta Protocol. All stations, prepare for possible orbital destabilization." Maya's fingers danced across her console, accessing deep space monitoring stations that had been quietly modified over the past few hours. "Activating lunar gravity assists. Captain Torres, I need precise timing on those solar wind predictions." "Solar wind patterns locked in," Torres confirmed. "Next major burst in 7 minutes." The command center fell into focused silence as Maya coordinated with global tracking stations. They were about to attempt something unprecedented, using the moon's gravitational field and an incoming solar wind burst to disrupt the carefully maintained order of their orbital debris field. "Dr. Wang, status of the Chinese-Russian satellite cluster?" Maya called out. "Ready for remote detonation," Wang replied from his station. "Though I still think this is insane." Maya allowed herself a grim smile. "Insanity might be our best weapon right now." The hexapod fleet had advanced another 1,000 kilometers, their energy corridor maintaining stability despite the shifting debris field around them. Their confidence was evident in their increased speed. "New transmission from the hexapod command ship," announced the communications officer. The alien commander's synthesized voice filled the command center. "Your resistance is impressive but futile. We have adapted to your primitive defenses. Surrender now, and we will consider preserving some of your orbital artifacts for historical study." Admiral Wright's laugh was without humor. "They still think we're trying to preserve our orbital space. Dr. Patel, show them how wrong they are." Maya initiated the sequence. High above Earth, previously dormant satellites began to move. Not the careful, calculated movements of before, but violent, desperate maneuvers that consumed the last of their fuel reserves. "Lunar gravity assist locked in," Torres reported. "Solar wind approaching maximum intensity. Now, Dr. Wang." Maya commanded. The Chinese-Russian satellite cluster, positioned at a crucial point in the debris field, detonated. The explosion wasn't large, but its timing and location were perfect. The shockwave, combined with the lunar gravity assist and the incoming solar wind, created a cascading effect through Earth's orbital space. Thousands of pieces of debris, their orbits already destabilized by the previous hours of tactical maneuvering, were caught in the disruption. The carefully ordered patterns of space junk that humanity had created over decades dissolved into pure chaos. The hexapod fleet's energy corridor flickered and failed as their computers failed to compensate for the suddenly unpredictable movements of countless objects. Their perfect formation broke apart as ships took evasive action. Direct impacts detected on 3 enemy vessels. Torres called out. "Their shields are failing." Maya watched in a mixture of horror and triumph as their desperate gambit played out. The hexapod's advanced technology, designed for precision and efficiency, was being overwhelmed by sheer, uncontrolled chaos. Multiple enemy ships showing critical damage, Wong reported. They're retreating to higher orbit. But victory came with a price. Warning signals flashed across Maya's display as she tracked the degradation of Earth's orbital environment. We're approaching critical instability in low Earth orbit. If this continues, we'll worry about cleaning up our orbital space after we survive this attack, Wright interrupted. Status of the enemy fleet? They're falling back, Torres confirmed. But sir, we're detecting energy buildups consistent with their space-time distortion drives. They might be preparing for something big. Maya's attention was drawn to a new alert on her screen. The quantum anomaly detector, the same one that had first warned them of the hexapod's arrival, was showing readings that made her blood run cold. Admiral, she said, her voice tense, I think we just made them angry. Really angry. Those energy buildups, they're not preparing to retreat. They're preparing to do something we haven't seen before. Wright leaned over her station, studying the readings. Recommendations? Maya took a deep breath, her mind racing through possibilities. We've shown them that chaos can beat their technology. Now we need to prove we can create even more chaos than they can handle. What are you suggesting? She pulled up a classified file, one she had hoped they wouldn't need to use. Remember that theoretical project about using nuclear detonations to create localized space-time disruptions? I think it's time we moved it from theoretical to practical. The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. They had successfully defended Earth with humanity's orbital garbage. Now they were about to escalate the conflict to a level that would change the nature of space warfare forever. Above them, the wounded hexapod fleet regrouped, their massive ships glowing with building energy as they prepared their counterattack. The next phase of the battle would determine not just the fate of Earth, but the future of human space exploration itself. The final gambit. The quantum readings from the hexapod fleet had gone beyond anything Dr. Maya Patel's instruments could measure. The alien ships had arranged themselves in a perfect hexagonal formation, their energy signatures merging into a single, terrifying pattern. They're creating some kind of unified field, Maya announced, her voice tense. The energy output suggests they're attempting to generate a massive space-time distortion. In English, Dr. Admiral Wright demanded. They're trying to create a controlled gravitational anomaly, she explained. If they succeed, they could literally tear our orbital defense grid apart at the quantum level. All our carefully orchestrated chaos would become useless. Captain Torres's voice cut through the tension. Nuclear package is ready for deployment. Waiting on final authorization. The command center fell silent. They all knew what was at stake. The nuclear option wasn't just about creating an explosion, it was about using humanity's most destructive weapon to create a counter-distortion in spacetime itself. The calculations have to be perfect, Maya said, her fingers flying across her console. If we're off by even a fraction of a second, we could tear a permanent hole in spacetime above Earth. And if we do nothing? Director Volkov asked over the comm. Then the hexapods will do it for us, Maya replied grimly. At least our way, we control where the rupture occurs. Admiral Wright studied the tactical display, watching as the alien fleet's energy field continued to build. How long do we have? 3 minutes until their field reaches critical mass, Maya answered. Once it does, they'll be able to manipulate spacetime itself. Our debris field won't mean anything then. Wright straightened his uniform. Dr. Patel, you have authorization. Captain Torres, begin deployment sequence. Maya took a deep breath, initiating the most dangerous sequence of her career. High above Earth, a specially modified satellite began to move. Hidden within its frame was a carefully shielded nuclear device, not large by military standards, but modified to create a very specific type of quantum disruption. Package is in position, Torres reported. Awaiting final coordinates. Maya's mind raced as she made the final calculations. They weren't just fighting with physical weapons anymore, they were about to engage in a battle that would manipulate the very fabric of spacetime. Dr. Wong, status of the remaining orbital grid, she called out. Holding pattern maintained, he replied. But we're detecting increasing gravitational distortions from the alien fleet. Whatever they're planning, it's starting to affect our debris field. Maya watched as pieces of space debris began to move in impossible ways, caught in the growing gravitational distortions. Their greatest defense was about to become useless. Incoming transmission from the hexapod fleet, the communications officer announced. The alien commander's voice seemed different now, less synthetic, more amused. Your species continues to surprise us. But this game ends now. Observe true mastery over spacetime. The energy readings from the alien fleet spiked dramatically. Around their ships, space itself began to visibly distort, creating a rippling effect that looked like heat waves in the vacuum of space. Now, Maya. Right ordered. Her fingers flew across the console, implementing the final sequence. The modified satellite activated, its nuclear payload detonating in a precisely calculated pattern. But this wasn't a normal nuclear explosion, the device had been specifically designed to create a quantum resonance effect. The blast created its own spacetime distortion, one that interacted with the hexapod's field in ways that even Maya hadn't fully predicted. The two distortions met in space, creating a visualization of physics that no human had ever witnessed before. Energy patterns are interfering. Wong shouted. The resonance is amplifying beyond predicted levels. Maya watched in fascination as the two spacetime distortions began to interact in increasingly complex ways. The hexapod's careful manipulation of gravitational forces met humanity's brute force approach to quantum physics, creating something entirely new. Their field is destabilizing, she reported, watching the readings fluctuate wildly. The resonance pattern is, wait. She leaned closer to her display, hardly believing what she was seeing. This is impossible. What is it? Wright demanded. The interaction between their field and our distortion, it's creating a stable quantum interference pattern. It's like we accidentally created a new form of spacetime manipulation. The hexapod fleet's formation had broken apart, their ship struggling to maintain control as the combined effects of their own field and humanity's countermeasure created phenomena that neither side had anticipated. A new transmission came through from the alien commander, but this time the tone was different. Cease your quantum manipulation immediately. You don't understand what you're doing. On the contrary, Maya muttered, studying the rapidly evolving patterns, I think we just discovered something they never considered possible. The space between the Earth and the hexapod fleet had become a swirling maelstrom of quantum effects, with debris from Earth's orbital field caught in patterns that defied conventional physics. But within the chaos, Maya could see something emerging. A new kind of order, one born from the collision of two very different approaches to manipulating spacetime. Their ships are powering down, Torres reported. They're retracting their energy field. The alien commander's next transmission was almost hesitant. How did you achieve this? Your technology is primitive. Your methods are chaotic. This should not be possible. Maya smiled, understanding dawning as she watched the pattern stabilize. Sometimes the most elegant solutions come from embracing chaos rather than trying to control it. Your precision met our improvisation, and together they created something new. Admiral Wright stepped forward. Are you suggesting we just accidentally invented a new form of spacetime manipulation? More than that, Maya replied, her excitement growing as she analyzed the data. I think we just proved that there's more than one way to advance as a species. The hexapods achieved space travel through perfect order and control. We got here by making mistakes, leaving messes, and learning from every failure. The quantum maelstrom above Earth was settling into a stable pattern now, creating what looked like a shimmering curtain of light that rippled between the two fleets. Earth's orbital debris, caught in the effect, had arranged itself into new orbits that somehow seemed both chaotic and perfectly organized. New transmission incoming, the communications officer announced. Text only this time. The message that appeared on their screens was different from anything they'd received before: request immediate diplomatic contact. Your species has demonstrated an approach to physics we believed impossible. We wish to learn. Maya looked at Admiral Wright, then at the stunning display above their planet, a testament to humanity's unconventional path to the stars. Sir, I think we just turned 70 years of messy space exploration into a bargaining chip for humanity's future. Wright nodded, a smile finally breaking through his stern expression. Dr. Patel, I believe you just helped humanity make its mark on galactic history. Not bad for a species that never cleans up its room in space. Above them, the quantum light show continued, a brilliant reminder that sometimes the most remarkable discoveries come not from perfect planning, but from embracing the chaos that comes with being human.